Okay, let's start. Yeah, we want to show today some features to solve some common PKI problems. My name is Michael. This is Alex. We will split the presentation in two parts. I will do the first. I will do the first part of the presentation, a little bit theory, some concepts, and then Alex will show you some practice. I think some demonstration or a playback. It's perhaps a better word, not demonstration. It's a little bit too risky here to make some real presentations. And yeah, let's start. I would talk about, like I noticed, about some concepts from us. I would talk about PKI reans. It's a little bit, yeah, the word is derived from Kerberos reans. I will a little bit show you about crypto abstraction, only very short here. Then I will show some stuff about configuration inheritance, and finally about workflows. Okay, what is one of the most critical aspects in PKIs today? This is CA migration. For example, in our university, it's the Humboldt University here, 2 kilometers away. We have the following architectures. We have a root CA. It's a common system from the DFN PCA. It's operated on OpenCA. The intermediate CA, it's the same. It's our root CA, and then we have the end entity CA, which issues user certificates and server certificates. The interesting thing is that this intermediate CA here only issued one certificate in the whole lifetime, the end entity CA certificate. This is a little bit stupid, and so what makes migration meaningful is we have now only a root CA. Okay, we have also now a real change in the root CA because we have another PCA here, and we have only our end entity certificate. CA here below. The thing is, if you look a little bit closer to the system, then we have two things. We have here some root CAs on top, and below we have some end entity CAs. The intermediate CA here is completely useless. But the interesting stuff is that we have two end entity CAs, but they are completely independent. This means we lose a lot of information. So we know here things about certificates. We know some things about certificate requests, which users do these requests, and here below, after migration, we start again in common systems. Another very useful example are mergers. Mergers are very common today. Even big companies are bought by much bigger companies, and so you have always CA migrations, even in very, very high volume environments. So a standard environment is that you have an Alpha Bank CA. It's only an example here. This bank doesn't exist. And you have a root CA provider at a low level. This brings a lot of stuff in the world because this is very common. Many banks, even small banks, or most big banks have big certificates, small banks have small certificates. In this case, they often use low-level verification. Bigger banks, in this case, for example, a Zulu bank, often issues root CA certificates by themselves to be really secure. There's a not a really standard, but it's called PIRMA. This is private isolated root mutual authentication. Slow. Okay, now better to understand? Okay. Okay, if I'm too fast, then... Okay. So what is a merger? A merger is nothing else than these banks come together and build a new CA system. One of the most common things in this situation is that they search for a new root CA provider to meet the requirements of the Alpha Bank below, and the result is that they have a very, very high secure root provider and a normal end entity CA below. The problem here in this situation is that you have a root CA area here, and you have an end entity area. But the problem is the Zulu Bank itself is a root CA, so you have problems with the inheritance. The other thing is, of course, you lose a lot of request systems. So, what we can summarize from this, if you have a merger or rollover or whatever, you never want to lose certificates and you never want to lose requests, because all these events mean you lose informations, which is really, really important. Another thing is, from time to time, there are new releases of software, especially in the CA environment, or big companies are no longer present on the market. A big example is Baltimore. I don't know. Who knows Baltimore here? Okay. Perhaps only for your information, Identrust was a big, or is it is a big banking PKI infrastructure. Perhaps around 50% of the banks and the root CA system is equipped by Baltimore, but Baltimore no longer exists. So the company is now an offshore company only to make money, but the company's software itself is sells, and now the company no longer exists. You can buy some support, but the company in practice is no longer on the market. But they equip 50% of the banks. So another thing is how to import a PKI. Sometimes it's necessary to simply import a PKI or the certificates of the PKI, not the key. But sometimes you go and you say, okay, my partner has a PKI system and I need all of them certificates in my system. In this case, you have to import all these things. And sometimes later you say, okay, I buy my partner and then I need the root key. This happens in practice, okay? But sometimes you simply need a playground. This means in PKI systems, it's really important to have test environments in the production environment. This means that you really can test what you're doing before you do it, but with the production system. You usually don't want to try things on your notebook or on PC, and then you go to 100 or 200,000 persons environment. And then let's look what's happened. So what's the idea behind? If you first look, you simply need some isolated CA systems on a system if you want to play with multiple CAs. But what happens is you have some more user CAs or intermediate CAs or whatever. In this case, it's a really good idea to start grouping or building domains. And what we are talking here about PKI realms is nothing else than this. It's a namespace. So okay, here it's written as a sentence, but the only thing which you have to take in mind is that the PKI realm is a namespace where you can place stuff. Every type of stuff, even multiple CA certificates and keys. So the next important question is how you link certificates. The important thing is that in your system, every certificate is only once present, even if you use it in different contexts. Perhaps you have a CA certificate, but the CA certificate was issued by root CA. This certificate should only be present one time in your system. It's never a nice thing if a certificate exists twice in a PKI database. So what we are doing is we simply issue a certificate and we reference then by a SAH1 hash of the issuer certificate. There's a small problem with this definition if you use cross-certification, because we don't cover this at the time. We have defined paths if we want to go to the top. But in practice, or the customers which we have, or in the environments in which we work, does not use cross-certification today. And the last statement is every certificate is only a member of exactly one PKI realm. Perhaps you now say, perhaps I need the certificate in 2 realms. In this case, there's a solution which we present some slides later. So, okay, what does this mean in practice? In practice, you have simply 3 certificates, and here's the realm, the gray stuff around. What happens, you have a user CA. In this case, I don't know, is this, okay, this should be green. Okay, I see here it's not really green, but it's green. This means it's a certificate, so you have a simple reference which you can go up until you find the root CA. The important thing is that I noticed, okay, you have another reference, it's not important. Some slides before we noticed that we can import several other CA systems or PKIs in one system from us. The reason is simply, you see here, there's perhaps another trustworthy CA which you need in your system, but you don't have the private key. A good example at this situation is it is often that you have operators which have very, very high secured certificates to authenticate, and then they issue very low-level server certificates. In this environment, you don't own the PKI system which issues the operator certificate, but you must fully import the other CA system without the private key. So some additional implementation of Sugar, which you will see later. We have aliases, which are simply only names for certificates, and you have some special CA certificate handling. So what's going on in practice? You often see these gray boxes. Oh no. Oh. Okay, the colors are not very, very useful. In this case, the gray stuff here, the rectangle, this is our PKI realm which we defined. The round box here, this is the CA system, and the rectangles here are the normal certificate. Now we have so-called aliases. This OpenX PKI CA in this case is a CA certificate, but not the real certificate. It's only an alias, a name, a reference. Where we can find the CA certificate. The CA certificate is present, like we know, in only one PKI realm, like defined. In this case here, this is the real certificate. It only exists one time. We place certificates in the CA or in the PKI realm where we issue them. This means if you issue a CA certificate, then you will find it in the CA or in the PKI realm where you issue it. You don't find it in the CA system where you use it. There you only find this reference here. So it's some type of logical abstraction. And here, you see here the OpenX PKI CA was issued by root CA. And now you see this, what we call a special CA handling. We have a realm with an empty name where all root CA all self-signed certificates are placed. A self-signed certificate is not issued by a real CA system. Therefore, was there a question? No? So this is the usual system which we have. This means we have some levels of groups or domains. What we show you now is how flexible the system is. So what you can see here is this is the typical system if you have a real root CA. Perhaps you have some user CA, some server CAs, which you will manage by different operators or with different security levels in this case. Okay, we talked some time ago that we can do things which have nothing to do with real cryptographical stuff here. Only short to show you how flexible this approach is. And don't try this at home, especially don't try this at work. Because this is absolutely not standard compliant what you see here, okay? It's only for demonstration how flexible the concept is. You have here one CA certificate, but you can use it in different PKI realms. Theoretically, you can issue here certificates 1, and you issue here a certificate 1 with the same CA system, and issue different CRLs with the same private key. So this is nothing which you should do in practice. It's only to demonstrate you at a very low level what we can do with this definition. So here is nearly the same system if you try to emulate an immediate CA certificate, like you see before. Okay, this is the graphic which matches what you see in the first slide, where we talk about CA migration. If you remember, we have a level which we want to eliminate. And here you have a root CA level here, you have the intermediate level which you no longer need, and you have here a normal CA level. The important thing is, in our database and our normal application, that the certificates which you issue here, you see these certificates even here. You can simply handle them on the same surface. Okay, on certificate level, it does not make much sense. You see, okay, another CA issued another certificate. You don't need this information usually. What you need is information from certificate requests. So, which information we have in certificate requests? We know which user makes the request. We know when we identify them, when they were present in our infrastructure. We have a lot of information from the first approval of the certificate request. And a feature which is usually not used because it's a little bit too risky from the cryptographic point of view, you can simply use the requests which are present in the old CA system and use them in the new CA system. This means you can take at this CA as a request from the first CA and issue here again a certificate. This means if you have renewal processes where you reuse old keys, which is not recommended, okay, but even if you generate new keys for this, you can use the information from the first approval process. This is important if you try to make rollovers, but with all certificate requests. So, this is the first part about PKI realms. Crypto extraction, I want only to talk very short about this theme. You have often different toolkits. You have OpenSSL, you have OpenTLS, you have NSS from Mozilla. The problem is that you have customers who don't want to be limited to one toolkit. You give them a toolkit, you say, okay, we use OpenSSL, which is our default toolkit which we use. But often these customers say, okay, we want to have an alternative if OpenSSL changes the license or will no longer be supported.